The rebirth of Donkey Kong through Rare's Donkey Kong Country on the Super Nintendo completely changed how many viewed Nintendo's lovable ape. While the game saw success on the home console, it made sense for a similar approach on Nintendo's handheld. Donkey Kong Land leans heavily on what made the original Donkey Kong Country on the Super Nintendo great, but did Rare do enough to cement its legacy in handheld form? More importantly, is it worth playing today? We can do all this and more in this retro review. Let's get into it. Danny from the Famicast here. If you're new to the channel, please be sure to subscribe and turn on those notifications. Sound off in the comments down below, and we may read it out on our bi-weekly show called the Famicast. Of course, you can find this in written form over on our website, thefamicast.com. Today, though, we're taking a look at Donkey Kong Land on the Game Boy in this retro review, discussing gameplay, visuals, taking a look at the Japanese packaged version, and more. Now, just a note here, for the purpose of this review, I played Donkey Kong Land via the Game Boy app on Nintendo Switch Online. Now, while there are elements of the game that can be attributed specifically to that version, this review is taking a look at the game overall. Now, without any further ado, let's just go ahead and get into it. Donkey Kong Land originally released in June 1995 in North America and was followed by a July release in Japan and an August release in Europe and PAL territories. Now, 5 years later, in 2000, the game was re-released on the Nintendo Power service in Japan, and it would be more than a decade before the game would pop up again, with it releasing on the Nintendo 3DS Virtual Console in 2014 in Japan, Europe, and Australia, and then in February 2015 in North America. The game hit the Nintendo Switch Online service in November 2024 worldwide. Oddly enough, the naming conventions between English-speaking territories and Japan is actually quite different. Of course, most of us know it as Donkey Kong Land, but gamers in Japan know the game as Super Donkey Kong GB. While this might sound a little bit weird, it's actually a callback to the naming convention for the Japanese version of Donkey Kong Country, which is known as Super Donkey Kong. Now, the GB in this Game Boy version refers to, you guessed it, Game Boy. Gameplay is snappy and smooth in Donkey Kong Land. Now, of course, the lack of buttons when compared to the home console Donkey Kong games might be a concern to some, but Rare did a pretty good job at adapting the series to Nintendo's handheld. Of course, you control either Donkey or Diddy with the D-pad, you can jump or swim with A, you can roll or pick up items with B, and then you can use Select to change between the two characters or dismount animal friends. I think the game feels just as good as its home console brethren, as both characters control almost exactly as they do on the big screen game. Animal buddies, namely Rambi the Rhino and Espresso the Ostrich, are also playable in the game. Now, I think they still feel good to control, and as an added bonus, Espresso can now be used to take out enemies, including zingers, those annoying bee enemies that you run into. Now, one of the biggest differences comes with the save system in the game. Now, in Land, you're only able to save if you collect the Kong letters, C-O-N-G, throughout the stages. Now, being a handheld game, I thought this was kind of a curious choice. Now, of course, if you're playing on like a modern platform like the Nintendo Switch Online service or by other means, this isn't going to be an issue for you. Now, according to an interview with Retro Gamer Magazine, the developers said that this was actually intentional to make completing the game easier. I suppose that does make sense given it is fairly easy to collect the letters in most stages. Donkey Kong Land features 4 worlds that are unique to the game but feel somewhat familiar. The stages on offer feature jungles, submerged ruins, a futuristic city, beat-up old ships, and more. Being a Donkey Kong game, several secrets are also scattered throughout the levels. Exclamation points here indicate levels where all the secrets are found, so it's pretty easy to keep track of which levels you may need to tackle again to get that perfect clear rating. Boss fights are also on offer at the end of each world. These aren't overly hard or anything like that, but I thought they were interesting and quite different from what was on offer in the original Donkey Kong Country on Super Nintendo. The addition of several new enemy types here too, such as the flying pig thing. God, I hate the level that these things are featured in. And this shellfish that chases you in underwater stages named Nemo. I thought they were pretty interesting, at least from a design perspective and stuff like that. So this stuff's pretty cool. Donkey Kong Land does its best to retain the look of its Super Nintendo counterpart. There are a lot of things that will look familiar, and I don't really see that as a bad thing. Donkey and Diddy both look great, sporting amazing amounts of detail and all that type of stuff. I think their animations are also nice, and it's amazing just to see how Rare essentially replicated their incredible work on less powerful hardware. As I mentioned previously, conceits were made to accomplish this, such as limiting the number of visible playable characters on the screen at once. Now, as with the original Donkey Kong Country, all HUD elements only appear momentarily on the screen. Collected bananas and the Kong letters stay off the screen for the majority of the time you're going to be playing, offering a pretty clean appearance. The only thing that you will see here are the number of lives that you have, which are represented by like hearts at the bottom of the screen. Well, I don't think it's a big deal or anything like that. I did kind of think it clashed with the overall clean look of the game. At the same time, I mean, hey, I got over that pretty quickly. It's not a big deal, but yeah, maybe you're wondering what the heck those are, but yeah, that's what it is. Those are lives. Of course, if you play the game via Super Game Boy or Game Boy Color, additional color elements are available. For the purpose of this review, like I mentioned earlier, I was playing the game via the Nintendo Switch Online service, so I didn't have access to the Super Game Boy options, and mainly played with the Game Boy Color feature. I thought this was a pretty great way to play through the game, as it offered a little bit more color here, making it a little bit easier to make out enemies, levels, and like all that type of stuff. The music here is also on point and captures the same kind of magic found in Donkey Kong Country, albeit in a slightly downgraded form. Now, perhaps my only complaint with the game has to do with the field of vision. When traversing stages, things are mostly fine. However, when you need to make jumps, the screen shifts to account for the limited screen real estate. I think this is completely understandable. Now, you know, once you get used to it, you'll be fine. Still, that's the only thing I could think of that makes this game not as good as what you'll find on home consoles, just screen real estate. Of course, pricing on this will vary depending on when and where you get it, but I picked up a box complete copy of Donkey Kong Land from an online reseller in November 2024 for about 900 yen, or something like $6 at the time is what it amounted to. My copy came with a box, manual, inserts in pretty nice condition, and all that type of stuff. So it's pretty nice find that I have here. Now, as with the release of the game around the globe, the Japanese version is also this banana yellow, which is great. Now, all in all, I'm pretty happy to have this as part of my collection. Donkey Kong Land is a great addition to the Game Boy library that really pushes the limits of the handheld. It benefits from being its own game, rather than just being a port of the Super Nintendo Classic, and differentiates itself enough with new levels and enemies to make the experience unique. While the game is short and the screen scrolling might annoy some, this is definitely a must-play for fans of DKC style of games. But let's go ahead and turn things over to you guys. What do you think of Donkey Kong Land? Did you play it back in the day? Did you try it out on the 3DS or Nintendo Switch, or however, did you try it out somehow like that? Be sure to sound off in the comments down below. We'd love to hear from you. As always, thank you guys so much for checking out this video. If you like what you see, please feel free to drop this one a like. If you're new to the channel and you feel that we've earned it, please be sure to subscribe. We've got a longer form podcast where we discuss gaming in Japan every 2 weeks live. We have tons of video reviews, looks at Japanese games, events, retro, and a whole lot more. Again, this is Danny from the Famicast. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you later.